Storm clouds are brewing over one of the nation's newest, most dynamic, profitable, and medically helpful industries. You know what I'm talking about, medical and recreational marijuana. Leading the charge against it could be Alabama Republican Senator Jeff Sessions. That is, of course, President-elect Trump's pick for Attorney General. And during his confirmation hearings, Sessions seemed to think that toothpaste could be put back in the tube, even though pot is legal in one form or another in more than half the country.
Would you use our federal resources to investigate and prosecute sick people who are using marijuana in accordance with their state laws, even though it might violate federal law?
I won't commit to never enforcing federal law, Senator Leahy, but absolutely it's a problem of resources for the federal government.
You even mandated the death penalty for anyone convicted of a second drug trafficking offense, including marijuana, even though mandatory death penalties are, of course, unconstitutional.
Well, I'm not sure under what circumstances I said that, but I don't think that sounds like something I would normally say.
No, well, that's a relief. No death penalty. Those answers were slicker than a tub of warm Vaseline. As you know, the Obama administration has mostly let this be a states' rights issue, mostly. But will those days soon be over? Joining me now is Dr. Ron Paul, host of the Ron Paul Liberty Report, as well as a former congressman and presidential candidate. Welcome back, Dr. Paul.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
So let's talk about this a little bit. You know, I made the assertion yesterday that I fear that an Attorney General, Jefferson Sessions, would in fact spark up the drug war, which has cost this country billions of dollars and millions of lives. Were his answers satisfactory to you?
Heavens no. I think it would be a terrible setback. I have claimed over the many years that eventually the country would wake up and get rid of prohibition like we did with alcohol, and we've been moving in that direction, and the states have done a wonderful thing in nullifying federal control, which I thought was another technical thing that was working very well. But I think it could be reversed with the next administration. It'd be very, very bad. It's bad law enforcement, the penalties that are given to people that can go to prison for life.
Yeah.
So it's three charges and no violent crime, and they're in prison for life. It's total insanity. So this is a major step backwards if they would become more aggressive on the war on drugs. Besides, you know, in one place, Sessions argues that on some laws, it's the states' rights, and let's leave them alone, you know, on gun laws or something else. But on marijuana, no, it's the federal government's responsibility to go in and do it. It's inconsistent, it's unnecessary, it's un-American, it's against the principles of liberty and free choices.
Yeah, and he acts as though it's really a legislative decision, and Congress can amend the federal law, therefore making it federally legal as it is in a majority of states. But the truth is he has a great deal of power concentrated in that office. How else are you worried that someone like Jeff Sessions, who by all accounts is a likable person, and he is certainly esteemed by his colleagues in the Senate, but there are areas open for abuse at the highest level, including civil asset forfeiture. Does that worry you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And his position on the Patriot Act is horrible, too. So he's not a very good civil libertarian, so he wouldn't qualify as a good civil libertarian. But as you point out, he's not a mean guy, and he believes he's a constitutionalist. But I think he gets confused on this. So often people use the Constitution when it defends their prerogatives, but not at other times. And I think that he'd be a great danger for the setback of civil liberty, but not for all the reasons they're chanting about in Washington. I mean, most of this thing is all about racism that doesn't exist. That's so unfair.
I'm glad you brought that up because
nasty.
Today, in regards to Sessions, of course, Cedric Richmond, who is a Democratic representative from Louisiana, testified along with Cory Booker, Senator Cory Booker, and Congressman John Lewis. And here is Representative Richmond in his own words about race at the Sessions nomination hearing.
To have a senator, a House member, and a living civil rights legend testify at the end of all of this is the equivalent of being made to go to the back of the bus.
Come on, man. Is everything about race? Seriously, like John Lewis had some very poignant thoughts on growing up in Alabama. Cory Booker did some political grandstanding. And, you know, I would say you don't have the final act of Phantom of the Opera at the beginning of the show. Am I wrong here, Dr. Paul?
No, you're right on this. And you know, we do have a black president, and he was elected by a lot of white people. For people to try to go back into the dark ages and resuscitate some of this racist stuff is just really, really disgusting. I have come to the conclusion these last several years, decade or so, that the people who shout the loudest about racism are most racist themselves. There's still those problems out there, but put it in context of what we're doing, and put it in context of civil liberties. And liberties shouldn't be designed, we should never talk about groups, minority rights, black rights, any of these things. We should talk about individual rights and dealing with in these terms. Then you could get to the point, why is it that the blacks aren't treated as fairly, you know, with enforcement of drug laws as white people that have the money to defend themselves? That is a civil liberty issue.
Yes,
but this
that's
whole
right,
thing
and that's
about
where
the back
libertarians
of the bus.
have done the best job leading that conversation. And you, of course, have spearheaded much of that. Thank you very much, Dr. Paul. I appreciate it.